Welcome back to The Growth Show. I'm your host, Whitney Bateson, and today I am speaking with Lorraine Ball, a marketing expert and SEO guru, for a really tactical, insightful conversation that is going to energize your marketing efforts. Mini spoiler, in the show, we will be talking about the power of websites in our marketing. And I wanted to quickly mention that if you don't have a website yet, or you currently have one, but it's not working for you, our website program, the Wellness Pro Website System, will be opening its doors soon, and I would love to work with you. You can get on the wait list, so you're the first to know when enrollment is starting, and you also really get a great discount on the course when you're on our wait list too. So head to wellnessprowebsite.com or click the link in the show notes to learn more about the program and to add yourself to the wait list. Okay, now I want to tell you a bit about our amazing guest today, Lorraine Ball. After spending too many years in corporate America, Lorraine decided it was time for a change. She said goodbye to the bureaucracy, shattered through glass ceilings, and even bid farewell to the infamous bad coffee, all to follow her true passion, empowering small business owners to thrive. Lorraine is a successful entrepreneur, author, and professional speaker who shares her extensive knowledge about marketing through engaging workshops across the country, inspiring college classrooms, and her very own weekly podcast, More Than a Few Words. With creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real-world experience, Lorraine makes complex marketing concepts accessible and actionable for her audience. And that is exactly what she does in this conversation today. But Lorraine's talents don't stop at marketing. In her spare time, she loves to travel, similar there to her, and capture the world through her lens with her photography, blending her love for exploration with her creative spirit. I love that. So in today's episode, Lorraine is going to share a step-by-step process for how to create content for your website that attracts prospects and search engines and fuels social media content as well. I think that sounds pretty amazing, right? Okay, let's get into it. Hello and welcome, Lorraine, to the show. I am so excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here, Whitney. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, we were chatting earlier. We have all these great ideas about what we are going to be covering in today's episode. And, the title and focus is SEO, but it's really more about effectively bringing more of your ideal client and customer and leads to your website and to your business and into your space with great marketing content. And there can be a lot of confusion around this, a lot of overwhelm in terms of what you should be doing, what you should be focusing on, maybe as a new entrepreneur, or even if you've been in it for a while, but you're just not seeing the kind of leads and traffic that you're looking for. We're gonna make it easy today. We're going to dispel some myths or maybe some misconceptions, cover a few new topics and new emerging things that folks should be aware of. So just a lot to cover. So let's first dive into what are some misconceptions that entrepreneurs have right now when it comes to marketing and SEO.
So I think the first thing is that SEO is changing and it continues to change and to evolve. And there is a term right now that people are saying SEO isn't really search engine optimization anymore. It is search everywhere optimization. And what that means is that, yes, 80% of all searches are happening on Google and other search platforms. So they're important. But about 15% of all search is now happening on social platforms. And the other 5% is happening on LLMs like ChatGPT and Poe and Claude and Perplexity. And so as a business owner, you need to adapt this broader perspective. It's not just about stuffing keywords into your website to win the SEO battle the way you think it was. It's now about thinking about your content and your visibility in a much bigger way. So that's really the first big misconception.
Okay. Yeah. There's been so much focus on like, okay, rank in Google and get ranked. And then also that old school mentality of putting the keywords in there and all of that. And it's really changing. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And I think the second thing, and this misconception is actually one that you said, the keyword stuffing. Full confession, this probably goes back 15 years. all of my friends, I was running a digital agency, and all of my friends in the business are like, oh my God, you've got to be doing this. You've got to be building websites with links and with these things, all these white hat tactics and black hat or gray hat tactics. And I looked at them and I said, you know what? That's exhausting. That is absolutely exhausting. And worse than just being exhausting, I don't think that's good marketing, because you're writing these pages for search engines and you stuff in keywords. But you know what? Google doesn't buy from you. And so you've built this entire page, this entire website to keep Google happy. Well, that's great. But you know what? That human being that comes to your website, they get there and they're like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
And so way back, we started a strategy that we called content-based SEO that was really about building websites and building web pages based on answering customer questions, with the idea that if we did that, those answers would be keyword rich, they would be informed, they would rank well, and people who came with checks in hand would be happy. So, and that has always been my strategy. And I have to admit that when Google rewrote some of their algorithm guidelines to bias towards content and away from keywords and away from spammy links, a lot of my friends were scrambling, and I was kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah, because it made common sense, and it eventually bore true that, hey, that we actually need to be thinking about the customers and the people that are reading these pages and these posts, and less about like, does the machine find this attractive because it contains these keywords, which there is an overlap, like you mentioned.
Oh, there's totally an overlap. And you can use Google to help you find the best questions. And you can also use ChatGPT and some of those other tools now. But the very best thing I always tell business owners is think about all the sales conversations you have. What are the questions that you hear over and over and over again? Look at your email. What are the questions that come to you? And then take those questions and go to Google and start to type in the first question. And you'll get that nice people also ask. And there's all those questions. And then if you click on it, people also ask. And just build this really long list of questions. These days with ChatGPT, I can say, hey, this is the business I'm in. What are the top questions? And it'll give me those questions. And then you need to answer them. And you need to answer them. Do not let ChatGPT write your answers.
Thank you for that advice.
Do not, because if you're trying to win SEO and you let ChatGPT write your answer, all it's capable of doing is repurposing stuff that's already out there.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of take some time and answer it in your own voice and in your own style, but you just need to start answering those questions.
Yeah.
The other thing is go to your website and you have that little search bar on your website. Type in that question and see what comes up. I had, and I know this is a different industry, but I was working with a flooring contractor, and he said to me, the question we get asked all the time. I said, what's the question? He said, why do I need to replace the subfloor when I replace my flooring? I said, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And I did a search. There was nothing on his website that answered it.
Yeah. Which, it's like sometimes we're just so close to the business. We're focusing on all these things, but that is just such a great hack, honestly. Of like, if you, think you've answered it or you've come up with these few questions, just first go to your site and see what it's doing.
Absolutely. And what's wonderful about that, when I ran a digital agency, number one question was always, okay, I'm paying for hosting, I'm paying for my domain name, and my web design. Why do I have to pay for all of those things? And I came up with this analogy of like a mobile home, and your website is your mobile home, hosting is your trailer park, and the domain is the post office forwarding your email wherever you go, or your mail wherever you go. And I wrote this post, and every time I got that question, I just sent the link to potential customers.
I love that analogy, by the way.
Isn't that
I've never
great?
thought the mobile home. I've done the like, okay, yeah, post office and all of that, but I love the mobile home because it can move. But anyway,
Yeah,
right.
and it needs running water and electricity.
Right. Someone's got to hook it up. Someone's got to give you
that's
that.
your hosting package.
Yep. But and I've spoken with clients about this too when it comes to their websites. Like you can have an FAQ section or you can do this in different ways. It doesn't mean, I think one of the mistakes that I see people make is that they take their services page and they think that that is where they have to answer all of these questions in full. And it's like, no, blogs can be a great place. You can link to those long form pieces of content, and there's so many different ways to do it and use your website in that way. So
Absolutely. And for people who are like, but I'm not a writer. Okay. I'm going to give you several. I'm not a writer. Now, I've written 3 books. I used to blog every day. I got paid to write for other people. So at some point you would think I was a writer.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's not my core strength. My core strength is doing what we're doing now, which is talking. So I had to come up with hacks. What I used to do is I would just audio record my answers.
Yep.
And I'd hand it to my assistant and say, transcribe this. Now, I still audio record my answers, but I give it to a transcription program. And I'll give you another one of my favorite hacks. A lot of people pay for Otter, which is a very nice tool. I think you're recording this on Riverside. It may have a transcript function built in. But if you don't, you can record a video on your phone, download the file, take it back. Well, you do need to convert it to an MP3. So I would record a voice memo instead. You've got your nice MP3 file.
Yep.
Open up Microsoft Word and hit the transcribe function, and it will transcribe.
It's free.
It's free. It's free. And you have like 300 minutes a month, which, I mean, you got to be doing a lot of talking to do that. So now you've got this transcript. And it answers the question. You got all your ums and your ers, but you've got a starting point that approaches the topic from your perspective, not from anybody else's.
Yep.
And now if you want advanced SEO hack or ChatGPT hack, you can take that and take your transcript to ChatGPT and ask it to kind of clean it up or write it in your voice. I don't want to do a whole AI lesson, but there are a lot of things you can do to teach ChatGPT your voice.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been actually just talking now. I mean, I'm paying for ChatGPT, so I don't know if this is an advanced feature, but there is a little microphone button now. I don't do the conversation because I found that does not work, and I got burned one time and I was not happy. But if you just press the little microphone, it will also transcribe what you say just right there in the chat. And I wouldn't talk for too long because it might time out or whatever, but like a 3-minute kind of thing. And it does, it helps. And you can say like, don't, keep my tone, keep my voice, keep the phrases that I've used, but just clean it up. And also point out what gaps or what I'm missing. Because I mean, to your point before about the SEO game, we don't want to just put out something that's just the same as everything else. The whole point still in ranking for search is to be at the top. And the way you get to the top is to put something out that's better than everyone else's.
That's better. That's unique. Absolutely. Yes. So, doing the questions, the other thing, and I loved your point when you said, do the blog posts. Internal links between your site, keep people on the site and interested. So write a bunch of blog posts and then pull the best one for your FAQs.
Yeah.
You can also do something called cornerstone content. So if you have one page that's kind of the overview, and then you have a bunch of blog posts that are tips. So the page is nutrition.
Or
Okay.
nutrition in pregnancy, or, prenatal
Yes.
nutrition.
And
Yeah.
now you've got like 5 blog posts where you talk about adding more vegetables,
Yeah.
cows, whatever. You
Mm-hmm.
can then link all of those back to
Right.
that main post.
Right. That way you don't have to feel like you're writing a literal novel, because that's a huge topic. And to go through all of that is a lot. And it is much better to link out to the smaller sub questions that kind of go in there. And I think you could probably go about it 2 ways. You could either outline the cornerstone and say, okay, this section would be a good separate blog post, this one, or you could just have all these questions and then eventually be like, oh, you know what? Now I have enough content that can go into a cornerstone
Absolutely.
post.
Absolutely. And there is no right, there's no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more hack on this, and then definitely want to switch and talk about some of the other strategies. But people think of blog posts as kind of one and done. I wrote it, I shared it a couple of times on social media, and whatever. If you're smart, if you have been putting content out there for any length of time, go back to your very first blog posts and update them. Add 50 to 100 new words. Add a new link, because maybe you had 10 questions. Well, now you've answered the 10th question. Go back to the first one and say, hey, more on this subject, and add those other links. Maybe you wrote an article several years ago about the importance of vitamin D and calcium to prevent bone breakage. And now this new report and this new recommendation has just come out that says, it's not bad for you, but it ain't going to do what we've been saying. So you've got this old blog post, go back to it and say, hey, update whatever date and add that new information. Add a photograph, add a link to an external source.
A new freebie you have.
A new freebie. Absolutely. That process is called reoptimization. So now you've got this not brand new, but really updated. Create a new social share graphic and get that back out on all your channels. Updated, new information, or just a new catchy title. ChatGPT is great for this. Hey, this was the title of this article. Give me 3 new suggestions.
Great.
Okay. Whatever you do, you can update it. Do not change the original publish date.
Thank you so much for saying that, because that's a question I get sometimes. And so please continue.
Please don't do that, and don't change the URL. Some people think, well, I've changed the title, I should. No.
Yeah.
Unless you want to get into using one of the tools that does the automatic redirect, which Google hates. So we don't want to do that. Think about it like you have when you create a page for your website, you have planted a tree, and everybody in the community knows where that tree is. When you change the date or the URL, you are picking up that tree, you are moving it somewhere else. It may or may not ever take root in that new location, and everybody is still walking over to the park going, what happened to the tree?
Right. And you put a little sign there that says, oh, the tree moved over to the corner over on Pine Street. And Google then has to follow that sign every single time. And they don't really love it. It happens and it's totally fine. Like, we redirect stuff all the time, but you don't want to do any more than you have to.
There are times that, you have to. Yeah. Totally get that. But if you don't have to, don't be doing it.
And that's why I think, when you're doing the titles for your posts, that's one thing. There's the title. With Yoast, for example, you can have 2 titles. You can have a title that's on your website that might be more factual and focused on it, but then an SEO title that's a little bit more catchy. It's meant to get people to click through. And then the slug, which is basically the URL plus your domain name, can be just very basic. I know Yoast suggests don't having stop words in there, nutrition in the final months of pregnancy. It's
Nutrition, final month's pregnancy. Yes.
Exactly. And that way, anytime you change the title, you don't have to feel like, oh, it's now no longer aligned. It's because you didn't make that URL super, super specific to that word for word title anyway. And that way you can keep updating it.
Absolutely. And you want to think about, I use Rank Math, but I've used Yoast, and they're very, very similar. One of the things that and in your industry, you're going to run into this as well. There are a limited number of keywords that I could use in my title if I'm writing about web design. And so what I've done with to create those unique URLs, I often do include the episode number and then the word web design. So even though I've used that keyword before, it's not redundant.
Right.
I also, if I'm quoting experts or if I'm doing a show that is using somebody I'm interviewing, their name is in the URL. The advantage to that is anytime somebody is searching for them, they're going to find me.
Right. Yeah. That's a great tip too. Yeah. And this will depend on how much content you're putting out on your website. And I think that that's another thing that can be a misnomer for entrepreneurs, especially service-based businesses who are really trying to generate active income. Not, passive income is fun and all of that, getting ads, affiliate revenue and whatnot. But for a lot of us, we want to make money now, and we need to be doing that by having traffic coming to our site and leads, booking calls, buying services, and all of that. And so the content strategy for a service-based business isn't the same as a content strategy for a blogger who is just trying to, the intent of the people coming to your site is different. It's just different. And I think, and I think that there can be this feeling of overwhelm of, I need to be blogging daily or every week. I think for a service-based business, putting out quality content that goes back to what you were saying, answering that question and then revisiting that content, even if you were to do one post a month, for example, and then every year go back and audit that content and reuse it for social again. And yes, blogs live on in Google, but we know our social content has a very short shelf life. So new followers, being reminded of that blog post and new pieces of content from there. So I think it's quality over quantity for a lot of us.
I think it is definitely quality over quantity. And I don't know if you saw the look on my face when you said blog every day, but in the early days, I did. I wrote every day, the non-writer.
Yeah. I mean, I heard you say it. I was like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's unpack that.
But I wrote a blog post every day. And but the rules were different. Yeah. A blog post of 200 words was fine.
Because social media wasn't like a thing. So how else were you going to get content
and people,
out there?
and I really miss this. People used to actually comment on blog pages.
Oh,
I mean, we had whole discussions in the comments of a blog post on your site. But then along comes social media and the conversations moved. And so that is kind of one of the other myths. People are like, well, but everything has moved to social media. Do I really still need my website? And I'd love to address that right now.
I hope, yes, please do.
I know that it feels like the world begins and ends with Facebook and Instagram. That Meta is. And what I will tell you is in the almost 20 years I've been doing this, platforms come and go. I did a slide for a presentation back in 2009 that showed all of the different social platforms that I had a profile on. And I showed it, I teach now at a university, and I showed it to my students, and I'm like, how many of these do you recognize? And they were like, well, I mean, there's LinkedIn, and, they really didn't recognize a lot of them. And then I put up a new slide that had the same number of profiles, but only probably a handful were on the original slide. Platforms come and go. And as a business owner, there is only one place where you will 100% control the content. Facebook has algorithms. You put stuff up on Facebook or on Instagram, people may or may not see it.
Yeah.
You have to play by their rules. Your videos have to be a certain length. Your graphics have to be a certain size.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, what happens if Facebook goes away tomorrow? I get it. It may not go away tomorrow, but it will go away. I mean, it will go away. It will be replaced by something. I mean, if you had,
we were seeing Twitter, like X, whatever, like case in point, who could have predicted? We won't go into it, but just change happens.
Change happens. I did a presentation, and at some point in the presentation, and I have this on video and I'm going to have to dig it out, I was like, well, what happens if Twitter goes away tomorrow? And this was a room full of social media people. This is 8 or 9 years ago, and there were gasps. I mean, we couldn't even envision.
Yeah.
There was a live Twitter feed on the wall behind me as I was saying this, okay?
That was brave.
because, I mean, that's just what you did at conferences. I mean, it just...
Yeah.
Twitter is going away.
Yeah.
They lost 50 million users in a month.
Mm-hmm.
A month. So, yeah. And so, number one, your website is the only place where you own all your content, you set the rules, you decide what and where and when the content will be displayed.
Yeah.
And number two, you control how long that platform is live.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who were shut out of their... Facebook is still there, but they got shut out because they violated unintentionally. These are not spammers. Facebook's tots in terms of service, or they were hacked.
Yeah.
And suddenly this whole community, TikTok, there are people. I was talking to somebody yesterday. She has 60,000 followers on TikTok. That is her primary platform. And she's like, if the law goes through and there is no TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what
well,
are you going to do?
Where, do you have all your videos? Do you have them somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is no, no matter what the platform is, you need to own your content.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my big.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great to hear from someone who's been in the industry a while, and you've seen the things come and go, and websites still, they have evolved in terms of, maybe the conversation isn't happening so much on the website anymore, but it's not an if or, it's an and. Like you need the website because it is still going to be that home, and then you are still building community and having conversations and getting that content out in some way. Search engines are one way, but you can post on social and all of that too.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me to that second piece of search everywhere. A decade ago, Facebook search sucked. You hashtags didn't work on Facebook, whatever. But things are changing. Number one, search functionality in general is way better than it used to be. I think honestly, leading the way on that was TikTok. Their search functionality was better than any of the platforms. Everybody else has caught up or is catching up. But people are on social media and they want information. And instead of leaving social media and going to the internet, about 15% of the time, they're searching on social. And so as a business owner, as you're putting content out there, you need to start thinking about optimizing your social profile and each piece of content, which is based on what you're putting on your website. You're doing little snippets and shares from your website, but it is about optimizing and thinking about keywords, key phrases, key questions, the
Mm-hmm.
same kind of things you were doing for your website,
Yep.
you now have to be doing for every piece of content that you're putting on any social media platform.
Mm-hmm. And giving it some thought. And so I know this probably, maybe for some people can sound a little overwhelming, but I think one of the things is starting from that core piece of content, potentially
Mm-hmm.
that blog post that you've put so much thought into in terms of what question am I
Mm-hmm.
going to answer and all the different things, and then repurposing that and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes driving people back to that blog post or just opening up the conversation, but not feeling like you need to start from scratch with
Mm-mm.
all of this, nor do you need to be posting every day or anything like that, but just getting this content out there, but being intentional about it and not reinventing the wheel by using what
Absolutely.
you're already creating.
Absolutely. The nice thing is if you create a big piece of content, then divide it up into, little snippets and create individual pull quotes and little social shares on that topic.
Yep.
The other thing that social media makes me crazy. I love it, I hate it. But
Yeah.
we are also in an age of what's called zero click,
Mm.
where Instagram has always been really zero click. Unless you pay for an ad, your links don't work, except for the
Oh,
one you put
right.
in your bio, right?
Uh-huh.
But if you share content on Facebook or on LinkedIn, you'd put that nice little link to learn more.
Yeah.
Well, those platforms now penalize you when you do that.
Oh, good to
Yeah,
know.
good to know. Yeah.
They'll let you do it.
They'll let you do it, but they won't show your post to anybody.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. The
nice.
algorithm is biased against any content
Off
that takes you
platform.
off the
Yeah.
platform
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay.
because it's their playground, their rules.
Yeah. Okay.
So as you're thinking about your search everywhere strategy, and now you're
Yeah.
you're trying to win search on social,
Uh-huh.
it's about having more keyword rich content. It is about having more engagement. And one of the things that you can do is if you have a post that generates a lot of likes and shares and comments, so the ball is already rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, want to learn more about this? And put the link in the comments.
Uh-huh.
But don't do it right away.
Okay. See how it performs, do a little testing, and then kind of.
Generate the interest, because the thing is that once I like your post, I get these little updates that say, hey, so and so just put a comment on a post you're following, right?
Oh, that's so smart.
And one of the posts that you're following, one
Yeah.
of the comments is, hey, here's
Yeah.
a link now.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you're
Yeah.
seeing it, and that's a great tip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all about, it's tough because it can feel overwhelming to keep up with all of this stuff that's changing and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I would just encourage everyone to even take one or two of the tips that Lorraine has shared today and try and implement those, and just try it for a month or two, see how it goes, and then just keep adding on. So maybe right now it's a little too much to be like, oh, now I have to monitor which posts of mine are doing well and all that. It's like, okay, just get the posts out there, or get the first blog out there, and then keep layering on. But
Mm-hmm.
these are all things, and this I can attest to myself. Sometimes when I learn something, I'm like, oh, I now need to implement that right away. But give yourself grace. These are all good tips. Write them all down and check them off as you do them, but don't feel you have to do all of them tomorrow.
You will never get it all done. And I just went to a podcast conference, and so I came away with this whole list of action items.
Mm.
Oh my God. I picked one, and I'm working on that one. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing I'm focused on. And then when I feel like that's up and running,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll go back and I'll look at what else is on that list.
Yep.
And yeah, you can't, whether it's just you or whether it's an army,
Yep.
you
Right.
still have to make choices about which of these things is going to move my needle forward fastest.
Mm-hmm.
And it is usually not the fun thing.
Yeah.
I'm a marketer, so there are things I like to do and things I don't like to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
always gravitate towards those things. But I have this little pop up that shows up every day that has this list of things that need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I
Yeah,
don't want
I
to do
want to
that.
do this other thing.
I want to do
Yeah.
this other thing. But that's the thing that's going to get me furthest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that probably looking at the blogs and the really doing some of that introspection and research about what are the questions
Mm-hmm.
that my customers are asking and that I need to be answering, I think is going to be time well spent, because that will
Yes.
inform the strategy. Whether you decide, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing my Instagram stuff right now or my
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn posts, I'm not ready to blog, but then you need to be thinking about those questions as you're,
Mm.
I think it's just going to improve probably the results of whatever it is you're doing in terms of marketing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love all the tips and tools that you suggested in terms of coming up with the ideas for the questions and all of that. Are there any other tools that you want to share that would make this easier for people?
Well, so several things. Number one, I do love ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
I also really like
Okay.
Poe.com. And one of the reasons I like Poe is ChatGPT occasionally makes stuff up.
Huh?
hmm Poe, when you do, it works just like ChatGPT, but you can click on it and basically ask it to show you the sources. And
Oh.
so it's like footnoting a report.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate that because it's taking you to more data, more current information.
Mm-hmm.
If you are doing video, I love Opus Pro.
Okay.
I can upload a conversation like this and it will generate anywhere from 5 to 10 shorts like that with
Oh.
captions.
Wow. Okay.
So I really love that. Full confession, I'm a reseller. I'm happy to share my link.
Okay.
I also love Publer. That has been my scheduling tool. So I can create content. I have 8 or 9 different social channels that I use for different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I can pick which ones I want to post to.
Yep.
I can upload my piece of content, my description, and then I can go channel by channel and make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Google My Business doesn't like video. Put a photo instead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Instagram, I really want to put up the square video rather than the rectangle. And I can make all of those changes. And
Yeah.
then I can schedule, and I can schedule either for a specific day, which I very rarely do, or I just say auto schedule in the next available time slot after whatever date. And
Oh.
what that allows me to do is stagger. So you don't, if you're following me on more than one platform, you don't see the same thing coming up in 7 places.
Oh.
And then the calendar, I can always still drag and drop and move things
Yeah.
around beyond that. But what I like about that is I can schedule to YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky. I could pay for Twitter, but I don't want to. Facebook groups, not as
Mm.
well.
Okay.
LinkedIn page. So lots of different channels, and
Yeah.
it is very, very affordable. Again, I can give you my link. I
Yeah.
hate to sound like commercials, but these are the products I've used and I love them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I've used Later in the past, but like not loved it. So that's that. I really like that. Some of those features. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and the Publer, you can. There's a free trial that lets you use just 3 accounts, and you can only schedule
Mm.
maybe like 10 posts. It's enough
Yep.
to get your feet wet, and
Right.
then
And
you
see
get
if you
addicted
like
and you
it.
want more.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not stupid. That works.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are
Okay.
my favorites.
I love it. Well, and I guess one final question, then I want to have people learn where to learn more
Mhm.
from you and all of that. But I think one question that might come up is, in a fairly stable business where like you've got things going, okay, how do you find new ways to answer the same questions that keep coming up?
So One of my favorites is actually to ask my customers, people that I've worked with for a while.
Okay.
So, if you're a nutritionist or a trainer, having a conversation and recording it, and either using the audio or whatever is, of all the things we've talked about, what was most helpful? We've been working together for a year. What's still getting in your way? Now that you're on this journey, they often say the more you know, the more you want to know. What do you want to learn next? And so what you're getting is responses to those questions using words. And these you want to be really careful not to change your customer's language, because they are using words that real people use to talk about what you do. Testimonials are always great,
Yep.
but these more focused questions help you. I mean, I did digital marketing traditional and then digital marketing for 15, 20 years. How many different ways can I write about a business plan?
Right.
Yeah. Get off your butt and write it.
But if people still aren't, it's like, what's the deal? What am I missing? What is the holdup and the struggle? Yeah.
Yeah. And user generated content, and I can go on ad nauseum about that, has huge authenticity value, and it has huge SEO value because you are using real words, real people to answer the questions.
Yep. Oh, I love that. And I think talking with actual customers, we can sometimes shy away from that. We want to just sit behind the computer and kind of, and it's not like you need to interview 10 people. Even getting one or two of these on the calendar and doing the transcription, and if you feel more comfortable giving some kind of reward or something in exchange for this, because it is just invaluable information. And I don't know about you, but if I had a coach and they wanted to learn how to better serve other people, and I was having a really great experience with that business coach, I would be more than happy to get on the phone and answer their questions and have a conversation to help them. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? Pay attention in your sales calls.
Yes.
I mean, you are going to hear things in sales calls that will inspire you.
Yep.
That's how I ended up with the story of the trailer park.
Amazing. Right. Yeah. You never know. And I think that is a really good point too, being that kind of like outside observer of the conversations in your business. It can be tough because we're in it. Obviously, on a sales call, there are so many things happening. And, we're wanting to obviously sell, but understand the customer and all of that. But even just taking a moment, either you can record the call. And I think that that's perfectly fine. I did that for a while where I just said, I want to make sure that I capture everything discussed. Is it okay if I just record this for internal use? I'm not going to share that. But then that way you can come back from that eye of like, what were the words that they used to describe their problems and the goals? And this is just something that we definitely talk about a lot in our website course and on the podcast, of just using those authentic words of your customers. Because that is what connects, whether it is in a blog post or whether it's the headline on your sales page or your website, or what you're using for a subject line in an email and how you're describing things. So that's just such a great tip, and to reiterate how important and valuable it can be, and the many ways that you can get that information.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, love it. Love it, Lorraine. All right. Well, you are clearly a wealth of information. So what are some ways that people can learn either more about this topic of content-based SEO or just learning from you in general?
So morethanafewwords.com is my website. It is home to my podcast with more than 1,000 conversations in my archive. You can certainly find that. On the website, you will find links to my classes. I have a whole self-paced class on content-based SEO. There are white papers and workbooks and so much more. And if at some point you're like, okay, I just want to talk to somebody, you can schedule an appointment there too.
Amazing.
And And yes, and if you're on social media, yes, I'm everywhere, but the truth is LinkedIn is where I'm sharing a lot of content, having the most conversations. And as you follow me, you're going to get connected to just a very large community of marketing professionals across industries. So I think that's a great place to be as well.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. We'll have the links to everything in the show notes. And it's just been such a great conversation, Lorraine. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.
And that wraps up another episode of The Growth Show. A big thank you to Lorraine Ball for sharing her insights on content-based SEO and so much more, and helping us understand how to connect more deeply with our audience. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to visit Lorraine's website, listen to her podcast, and sign up for her content-based SEO mini course. All the links can be found in the show notes, as well as those few tools that she mentioned as well. And again, if you are starting to see the power of a website, but you don't have one yet, or you need to revamp your current one, check out my Done With You website program, the Wellness Pro website system. Over the course of just a few weeks, you'll work with my team and I to create a beautiful professional website for your business that will connect with your customers, generate more leads and sales, and also make it easy to put out those monthly blogs that we spoke about today. So head to wellnessprowebsite.com to learn more. Doors are opening very soon. And finally, if you love today's episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps us reach more entrepreneurs like you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next time on The Growth Show.